So the next, last but not least, this one is particularly relevant to San Leandro because Joel and Michael took industrial space, blighted industrial space in Jack London Square, and said, what can we do with it, with this new sharing economy concept? And of course, here in San Leandro, we have a couple of industrial buildings that might benefit from a little new thinking about how to do this. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce to you Joel Poole, who's one of the co-founders of the Port Workspaces in Jack London Square.
Thanks. Derek, I've got like 100 clicks, so I'm going to use this as an audible if that's okay. You and I got to be tight. Okay, I'm just going to talk about how we came into this business and what we did with our buildings and some of the design lessons that we learned, operational lessons, and things that we learned after a year and a half about the business model in general. Awesome.
It works.
This is beautiful Jack London Square on the Oakland waterfront, which is a very industrial and historic neighborhood. This is our first project, 315 Washington Street. This was born in 1925, resurrected in 2012. It wasn't empty the whole time, but it had been empty about 3 or 4 years. It was a distressed bank-owned property, and it started life as a broom factory. Our second project is 101 Broadway, right at the entrance to Jack London Square, and we acquired that in 2012 and just finished renovating it this year. That building was made famous by Jack London himself in his book John Barleycorn, which sadly was an autobiographical novel about being an alcoholic. The pub and bar that he used to angle for free drinks in is still there in the first floor, and we've kept it as an authentic pub. And the upper 2 floors, which are now office space, were originally a hotel and a brothel. So the building's always been in the hospitality industry. We came into this backwards as real estate developers. Michael, my business partner, Michael Curley, is an architect for about 30 years. And I came from a tech and finance background. And we always were drawn by the amazing, forgotten, historic gems in Oakland in a rare, underutilized, walkable area still left in America. So as we acquired this first building, we didn't know that we wanted to make it a shared workspace, but it made sense to us having both spent a lot of time working at home on and off, and so we learned a little bit about co-working. Sorry. So the first thing I did is in the spring of 2012 went to the GCUC co-working conference in Austin. It coincides with South by Southwest, and went to a panel very much like this one, which was run by architects and operators of co-working spaces. And there we met the most educational and informative people. This is the executive management team of a strange company called NextSpace. Knows how to have fun, and is, as far as I can tell, after seeing about 20 or 30 spaces, just the smartest people in this industry. And anything you want to know about running a co-working space, write down everything they have to say. So, after their bizarre hazing rituals, I was inducted into a co-working sorority and felt ready to take on our first project. The interior of this building had been converted to an office, and as my business partner Carilli says, it had great bones, but a lot of sheetrock, a lot of closed spaces, a lot of poor lighting, and just really an underutilized building. There I am working on the roof. This is my business partner, the design mastermind. First thing you do is start knocking down walls. And this is actually a video if you could click on this. This proves that alcohol, investors, and sledgehammers just really go well together. It's that one goes into video. Okay. I guess we could go back to full screen. What happens is that one of the hammers flies loose from her hand and punches a hole in the wall, which is now an Ethernet jack. So everyone got a chance to make a mark. We tried to make best use of the atrium and added skylights to bring natural light to kind of enhance it coming down to the center of the building. This is the final product. It looks more expensive than it is because ironically, people don't like older buildings. They find them tough to work with, but they're actually built to much higher construction quality than today's buildings. And all in, these projects have cost us half of what new construction costs. Just another view. We build everything we do around as much natural light as possible. Where there's no natural light, like you make it a conference room. If you can't get windows or at least glass walls into it, another conference room. Front office. All of our meeting rooms are automated, so you can book them on Google Calendar, and it shows who's reserved what in a nice little sequence, and they can also be billed for using the hours beyond the allotment. This is a day office. This is one of our most successful products. It's we call it Your Space desks. They're just reserved desks in a shared room. It's very affordable, and we found that what fills up immediately, ironically, is private space. Even though a lot of people come for the community and they come for the communal experience, when they need to get work done, you find that people want their offices, they want to have their private team conversations, or at least they want a place to focus that's a quiet place. And then they'll rotate out. They'll go into common space, they'll go into co-working desks, they'll go into the lounge, and it's the kind of best of both worlds. That room filled up within about 6 weeks, 6 desks. We then opened up another room like that filled up. We found more IKEA configuration type furniture to put 4 more in there, and those filled up. So it's not, there's the obligatory gaming room. This is the main co-working space, and this is the first iteration of it. This is actually, we consider kind of a design failure, and I'll show you why a little bit later. First day opening, that's part of our design team. They're also our tenants. And here we are ready with our brand new space, not knowing if anyone's going to show up. So the first thing we did is just put out food. Food works, and we made our space accessible and free to as many local groups as we could. This is a group called Oakland Grown that started having their administrative meetings. Hard to keep out the gangster element, despite the no gang signs policy. This was election night, apparently a lot of Obama supporters. Happy hour on the roof. We hosted a film shoot for a zombie web series. It's one of our coworkers. We do this to make the space accessible, to get people to start to rely on it as a space that they can use as a kind of a base camp, and just to kind of engage with the community. We then we had it also as brought in a curator who brings in 4 rotating artists a month and made it a fully functioning art gallery on nights and weekends. And we're now the only office building that we know of that's a registered member of Art Murmur, the monthly art walk in Oakland. And that's been just a huge amount of fun for everyone, and really great things happen when you get tech people and entrepreneurs in the same room as artists and creative people. There's kind of a different layer of magic that happens there. That's guy second from left is Steve Havil. He's our featured artist this month. And conference rooms turn into art workshops. And the next morning you have freehand art and a new logo on whiteboards. Our second project we acquired last year, 101 Broadway. That's the Jack London building. It's right there at the entrance to Jack London Square, so it's a good visible location.
Awesome.
It's now, the restaurant is now leased and it's going to be back in business starting in November after about a 5-year hiatus. There's our design team ready for their second challenge. The offices above were actually in pretty good condition, but just the kind of generic, dark sheetrock. I like to say that a lot of our job is just undoing the 70s and 80s. Kind of tearing that back. They covered up 7 layers of brick. They covered up windows. They covered up 60-foot continuous glue lamp overhead beams that were just magnificent. And you just want to find that architect and just shake them.
That's right.
So that's the insulation coming down. That's the ceiling grid coming down. Masks for quite a while. Construction starts. There I am building our phone rooms. Phone rooms are extremely important.
Yes.
That's the finished product, but very lightly furnished. That was our first port lunch. We have about 90 members between the two buildings, and members get access to both buildings. It's one key card for both. Again, kind of the focus on natural light. There's a very little need for electric light in this room, actually, with the new skylights. This is a view from a darkened conference room. That was our shipment of chairs from the HP campus. Can't be $10 a chair, as they were selling out to Apple. That's a temporary railing, actually, and will be replaced by a steel cable railing. This is one of our first workshops. Was hosted just this past month. When the steel cable railing goes in, there's another little goodie that's going to be added. We decided to make the kitchen like a full-service, two-oven catering type kitchen and make it part of the co-working space. Because you see, just like at home, just like at parties, people always gather around the kitchen. So it's a work bar most of the time, and now tenants are starting to cook meals for other tenants and have their nights that they do their happy hour, they do their function. It's a typical office. It's a front view of the square from one of the offices. So we have 32 offices between the two buildings. We built these, again, just trying to meet that need for small private space that's not disconnected from the communal space. Those are the phone rooms that are completed, and they also double as hammock rooms for afternoon siestas, very important. Game room, this also doubles as a ping pong table and a conference room. This is a analytics hackathon, and in the back there is a vectorized mural of our slide, which is 4 months overdue. That's what it'll look like. Oakland permitting. They're still writing code for how to put a playground slide. It'll be 28 feet and a fun way to get your coffee. We call it the gravity-powered productivity booster. Again, this is just going back to one of our Your Space rooms. Those desks always sell out immediately as soon as they're available. But some of those people are, just thrilled to be part of the events and the lunches and the other stuff we do. This, I guess, is just talking about our different design iterations, what we learned. If you can buy it on wheels, buy it on wheels, because you spend a lot of time when you open a co-working space just moving furniture around, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Desks of different heights, I did not realize how important this was. Hub heights, adjustable height, they get used heavily, and people will rotate throughout the day. I guess, it's a way to kind of relax and stretch out and fight the carpal tunnel. Seating is of utmost importance, both placement and soft seating versus hard seating. You notice right away, no matter where you put chairs and tables, people always sit in the same positions. They'll sit with their back to the wall. They never like to sit with their back to the door. They never like to sit perpendicular to another person. It's kind of uncomfortable to be working with someone looking at you like this. And so we learned to kind of arrange things to adapt to that. Texture also matters. You can just see when this is Rashmi and Bridget. They have a startup company, and they move throughout the building as they do their work throughout the day. They have a couple of Your Space desks. They'll work here for a while. They'll grab an unbooked conference room for a while. Different conversations happen with the same people based on where they're sitting and how they're sitting. People have different conversations when they're sitting on a couch versus a chair. Build as many nooks and crannies as possible. Again, open space is great, but it's kind of like an animal risk feeling when you go into a room full of strangers. Nooks and crannies are safe. Turnstone makes some products that are really expensive, but we will invest in a few of them. This may look silly, but when you sit in one and have a conversation in one, it completely transforms the mood and the kind of conversation you can have. Visual comfort, going back to our co-work room, this is what it started out as, and it had that kind of sterile hospital feel to it that people did not find attractive. And of our 4 co-working spaces, it was always the least popular. Something just as simple as adding some reclaimed lumber in the back. That's reclaimed lumber from the water tower. Now it's the most popular before spaces, and it's hard to find a seat there most days. It's made the room smaller, cozier, and it was just amazing. It was a good control experiment of how something visual totally transformed exactly the same room with no other changes. Experiment. I really encourage anyone who's considering starting or operating a co-working space. Every market is different. Price points is in my previous life as an economist, you would call it highly price elastic. We've seen a 20% difference in the price point completely kill a product to the point that we would roll it back within 2 months. Price really matters a lot. And thank God for IKEA. Start out with IKEA. It's disposable furniture, it's a placeholder. It ain't pretty, it ain't cool, but you'll spend the first few months configuring, changing, moving furniture around, going back and forth, trying different things. Once you find what's right for your users, your market, your lighting, and your space, then you can throw it on eBay or Craigslist, get half your money back, and start replacing it with cool pieces and your permanent furniture before you make that investment. We always would invest a little bit, kind of build as you go, assess, analyze, and then adapt and reinvest. Rotation of space. It's about using, like farmers say, every part of the pig but the ark. Our co-working space doubles as an art gallery at night. Our open space has been at least once a month used for various commercial video shoots. Our break room becomes our second screening room for presentations because it has a TV. Our kitchen is our central work bar. Conference rooms become art workshops, and our phone booths are siesta hammocks. We try to keep everything being used as much as possible 24/7. It hurts us for some reason to see empty space because there are people that'll use it. So if you find a free use for it, let them use it. If it doesn't detract from the main business model. We found it's extremely important to automate, and I think that's one of the things we've gotten right from the start. It's a very tough business. It's very labor intensive, and we want our people to be focused on working with people, working with members, working with prospective members. So we use, in case anyone's interested, Brevo for an automated access system. Our rent is collected through an app called Spark Rent, which is fantastic. Our member billing is through another online service that was a startup in Berlin called Cobot. Our meeting rooms are run by a company called Liquid Space. Our meeting room signs, which are tablet-based signaling devices, so people know who's got what room when they can step in, is another local provider called What Now. Printing is by Easy, so people can just come in, walk into the space. As soon as they're a member, they can just start printing without loading print drivers and stuff. It sounds like a bunch of small techy things, but it makes the experience fluid, and it probably lets us, it kind of doubles our manpower in a way without really doubling it. And finally, I would encourage anyone doing this to focus on incubating. Free events and food. The first time we had a lunch as opposed to a mixer or workshop happy hour, we'd have 10%, 20% turnout. You put out food, the first time we had 117% turnout, which means some non-members showed up. It's magical. Nothing like a free lunch. Catalyst tenants. You kind of know them when you see them. They're the people that walk in and they're helping you with your router security. They're throwing lunches. They're getting groups together for happy hours. Work with them. Ramp them up. Try them out for a free month. Very often, you have some unleased offices. Let them use them for free. About half the time, they'll end up becoming a permanent occupant of that office. Give people an upgrade path. Having different space products allows a startup to actually do what it's supposed to do, grow, and many of our tenants have and will graduate from the building as they become larger companies, and that's fine. But you can start with a desk, move to a cubicle, move to a little team room, move to an office, move to a couple of offices, and then move out. Another thing that I think is observing this from the, I think, unusual perspective of being both the landlord and the tenant as a co-working operator. We actually separated the entities, is the tenant needs to be incubated. This is one of our tenants. This is a little kind of detour back off, but he's a food entrepreneur, just decided to throw in lunch. All we do is provide supplies, and it's just amazing tamales once a month for everybody. The guy in front is a brand new tenant this month, already organizing their weekly Wednesday pizza. They make their own. Just incredible guys. Like, I would call them catalyst tenants. And These are our staff. These are the people who make it happen. If there's one trait to look for, it's hospitality. It's being welcoming, warm. The comments that I always get from new members is how different visiting our space was, because it's got a face, it's got a soul. You feel like you're being welcomed in somebody's home. And we see our job as doing what we can to kind of incubate that interaction, make a nice space, provide good service, and then get out of the way, in a way. Because the right tenants, the right community, the right environment, you know, magic will start to happen. 101 Broadway, our second building, was reserved only for technology and people in the arts industry. And it's a magical gelling that takes place, and you kind of can just sit back and watch it happen. Going back to incubation as a tenant, I've seen a huge economic disconnect between the value created by a co-working space. Most of that value goes to the landlord, honestly. The hard work and the hard grind of being the co-working operator brings tremendous value and cachet to the property. And if I was considering starting a co-working space as a standalone, the first stop I would make is find a progressive, smart landlord, especially a developer or a new owner of an underutilized property, and work with them as a partner. If they're smart, they should recognize that they should be a partner in this kind of use. One thing, an easy thing, eventually the space should stand on its own and be paying market rent within about a year. It takes months to build and find that community and get those catalyst tenants. It's not an overnight thing, no matter how good the product is. I'd say it takes about a year. A company like Nextbase, with a brand that's practiced, that has this finely oiled, tuned machine, these tiger teams that go in and start a new site, probably a lot faster. But independence, new areas, Oakland was probably not the most obvious place to start a co-working space a couple of years ago. A rent ramp starting basically with zero or nominal payment and ramping up to market over a year, I think would be appropriate, and it's something I think I would do as a landlord to a competent, for a competent co-working operator, because it's not necessarily about maximizing money. Yes, you make a lot more per square foot by splitting up space, but you spend a lot more on technology, on service, on administrative things that it takes to run the spaces. A co-working space takes up what realtors and traditional real estate think of as unusable space. You get a fast and flexible lease up that gets that business cash flowing and that building cash flowing quickly. Both of our spaces were over 90% capacity within 4 months. For a developer or someone who's taking on a distressed property, that's survival. That's absolutely crucial. Your first 2 years in business, and it's usually a year to renovate and a year to lease up. Anything goes wrong, you can be derailed. Fortunately, we've been able to do both of those things in about half the time, and co-working has been a big part of that. It's a lot easier to find and use pricing flexibility to get 50 tenants into a space versus waiting on one big corporate tenant. Tremendous marketing and exposure for the building. As a landlord, you will never get, especially for office space, you'll never have the cachet and the public relations and the community involvement and just the exposure and the high profile that you get when you have a co-working space, a successful one in your building. You naturally incubate a waiting list of office tenants. And office tenants really carry a lot of the economic load for these kind of spaces if there's a good kind of communal and private space balance. There are always people waiting for an available office. You get a level of services and amenities that you cannot afford to do as a landlord if there wasn't this special kind of extra layer of service and accessibility, kind of like the health club model of co-working, that if you were just doing it as a landlord paying out of pocket. A co-working space is the ultimate property manager. They have, you will be able to have great sales and marketing people involved and competent customer service people on site managing and marketing their building, because they can basically bring in these extra revenues per square foot or per room by sharing the space. That's an extremely valuable thing that I don't believe is being compensated in the current real estate business model. It's simply looked at as a tenant, you pay the rent. It should be a partnership where you say, come run our property, including the parts that are corporate lease or traditional office lease, and pay us rent, pay us a market rent. We'll rebate you back, maybe property management fee, maybe commissions for keeping the building fully occupied. And I think that model probably better captures what a co-working space can do for a building as opposed to just the traditional model.